Okay, I believe we are live. So, welcome to the Ignite Your Inner Spark show, where you will find inspiring conversations, practical tips to deepen your self awareness, and live a more intuitive, fulfilling, soul aligned life. I'm Dyanne Kelley, host and author of Soulfire Woman, creator of the Soulfire Woman's Way mentoring program for women, and psychotherapist for over 25 years. And I already need to press pause here because I am not recording. I'm not sure why that's happening.
Yeah, you could hit record or you could download it from the Facebook recording. It's being recorded.
Okay. Well, we're just going to keep on going because we have an important guest and an important subject to talk about today. So in this episode of Ignite Your Inner Spark, we will talk about being a caretaker versus being codependent. And my guest today is Risa Gaull. Risa is a self-love and relationship coach for women, award-winning speaker, and creator of the program Freedom from Codependency, the Self-Love Solution. And she has helped thousands of women over the past 20 years create healthy, fulfilling relationships that are built on a firm foundation of self-love. So beautiful. Welcome, Risa. I'm so excited to have you here today. So why don't we talk about, let's start with how you got started working with women in self-love and codependent relationships. And
Yeah, thanks, Diane.
your
Thanks so much for
short
having me
story.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy to share. So I feel like I have been self-love was this elusive thing that I feel like I've been sort of searching for all my life. And I didn't get married until I was 38 years old because I wanted to wait until I felt whole and complete. And I got to that point and I was just like, well, I think I'm ready. I'm as ready as I think I'm going to be. So anyways, turns out I married a man who ended up relapsing into alcoholism and
Mhm.
was suffering from depression. And I didn't realize how much I was still depending on him for my sense of sort of my security, for that love, for that approval, until he really started struggling with all of that. And then
Mhm.
so that was a huge awakening for me. And I never thought I'd be saying that. I'm actually grateful for that experience now because it really was the most painful time in my life. But it was
Mhm.
through that experience that I just learned so much about myself and what does it take to really be in a healthy relationship. So that's my passion now as a certified transformational life coach, is just helping women really be in alignment with themselves and how to, be in good, right relationship with ourselves so that we can make the decisions that are right for us and create healthy, fulfilling relationships. But of course, we know, if we're not in right relationship with ourselves, then no relationship's ever going to be right. Right. Or we're always looking to the other person
Mhm.
to, show up in a certain way, or we can't get that. What we really want, what we really crave, is to be who we are and feel good about who we are and come from that whole place of
Mhm.
being able to have a healthy interdependence, right?
Right. I mean, right. So we really want to feel strong in our core essence first. And we think we can change. I always say this, you can't change someone else. You can only change yourself.
Mhm.
Um, but we try and we try and we try, don't we? And
Mhm.
so, yeah, so this whole idea of codependence, it sounds like you've really lived it and experienced it yourself. And back in my early psychotherapy days, it was really kind of the buzzword, and it was connected with addictions work at the time. But it's so much broader than that. I think find ourselves in, without even labeling it, codependent relationships, and we don't. The lines seem to blur between, oh, maybe we're just taking care of things, or we're being the nice or the good girl or the good partner, and then all of a sudden, you know we do lose that sense of self and our identity. So maybe I think it would be helpful for the women watching, and actually let me put it out there. I think the women watching might have a lot of questions for you, even on replay. So we'll go back and make sure we get those answered. So please pop those in the chat. But, maybe you can share some examples of what does a codependent relationship look like, and what does healthy caretaking, I said caretaking, but maybe just healthy relationship look like?
I love that question, Dyanne. And yeah, it's, I don't even often use the word codependency because I didn't know what that word meant. I think people don't really know what that means, but you know what, I do, from my perspective, I do have a much broader view of what does it mean. And for me, it's just the root of it is just, we're looking for love and approval from other people. And so
Beautiful. Yeah.
like that's the root, I think, of all our relationship challenges. And so codependency, the definition, originally it was coined back in the 70s for partners or family members of people suffering with substance abuse, but the definition now, if you look it up, it's just someone, if we're making our emotional well-being to relying to making it too dependent on another person and their behavior and the choices they're making, like our well-being is too dependent on another person. So I know that one very, very well. That's what I had to learn. And so, we all have these patterns, like we all have our childhood patterns that get created. And so codependent relationships, what it ends up looking like is I feel like I have to caretake you. And yeah, sometimes you're in a situation where you do have to take care of people, but it's the question of what is my responsibility and what is not. That's what I had to learn really well. So, there's a point where either we're enabling or we're giving away too much. We're just over giving at our own expense, and that's not going to help anybody, right? If we can't give from an empty cup. And so there's a balance. There's a balance there. And so we sort of have to look at what's the motivation, what's driving it. Am I feeling like just overly responsible for you? Am I confused about where do I end and where do you begin? What's the difference between caretaking and enabling? There's a line there. So there's that. And
before you go on, I
yeah.
love what you said about we're all just looking for self-love and acceptance. I mean, and then somehow, maybe we don't know how to get that in a healthy way. And we get into these patterns, like you said, of getting it indirectly. And so, something like that might look like, like overgiving, like you said. I love that too. Because as women, I think we have to really be careful about that, because I think we are the nurturers and have the tendency to be the overgivers. But it could also look like something really different, right?
It's like the whole people pleasing thing, that kind of goes along with it. It's like we're, and like you're right, we're sort of taught that culturally, and part of it, we're as women, we're sort of wired that way to be the caretakers, and and we're taught as little girls, you've got to put everybody else first. You got to take care of everyone else first. But like I said, there needs to be a balance there. And we're fortunate to live in this day and age where, our role as women, it's all, and men and women's roles, we're really coming into balance with that. But yeah, so it looks like people pleasing. It looks like overgiving, or feeling like I can't say no, like I have to say yes to things that when it's really, it's like healthy boundaries, like really getting in touch with what do I need? I work with so many women. It's like I've just put everybody else first for so long. I don't even know who I am anymore. I don't even know what I want, what I like. It's like, I know you probably
that's like a direct line I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that's just like a direct line from my book.
Mm.
Exactly. Because I think it's such a common theme for
Mhm.
women,
Mhm.
right? It's a thread that kind of runs through us all at some point or another.
It's a really good question. Like, okay, who am I without you? Who am I without
Right.
you?
Oh,
And like
yeah.
that's why I had to learn. That's why I teach people a lot. Is like that's the first step. Is like just can we just get the focus off that other
Mhm.
person and just turn, like turn the ship over a few degrees by get the focus back on yourself and just focus on self-care, even in small ways. And I'm getting into tips now, but
Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I was thinking when you said that, when I was going through my divorce, that's the very first thing that I felt inside is like, who am I without this person? And I
Mhm.
wasn't really sure because you do have that weaving of interdependence and probably in codependence too. But it's
Mhm.
I feel like that's one of the most important questions a woman can ask herself is who am I really? And
Mhm.
who am I without this person?
Yeah, I know. I got really enmeshed, which I didn't, that's why I had to learn. It's like, where do I end and where do you begin? What is my responsibility? What is not?
Mhm.
And just recognizing other people have their own higher power and I'm not it. I
That's a
don't have to like
important
manage everybody
distinction.
else. Like, great. See if you notice that, if you can relate to that, type in yes in the comments if you can relate to that, right? So it's just yeah, coming back into healthy balance with that.
Right. Everyone has their own higher power and I'm not it. That's a gem. That's a takeaway. And
Yeah.
but I think back to the earlier point is, looking for the motivations underneath why we do these things. And we may want to be that person, that higher power or person for the other person. So it gives us a role in the
Mhm.
relationship and we get something out of it. So I guess
Yes.
you were talking about self tips, and maybe the first one would be awareness or understanding that or uncovering it, or maybe you want
Yeah.
to talk more about patterns or
Yeah, that's really the first thing is just start to become aware of, am I overgiving? Am I people pleasing? Am I saying yes to things that I don't want to really be doing? But yeah, because we derive that, I feel like, well, if I, people please, if I take care of you, I do whatever you want, then I'm going to get the love that that I feel like I need. And, there's reasons why we have those patterns because, it's not our fault, but, we all have these patterns that we develop as children. And so maybe that's what you were rewarded for. That's you were loved. Or then the other thing is like perfectionism.
Mm,
Oh, that kind of goes along with it too. It's so I've heard people break it down as like either the need to be needed, the want to be wanted, or the need to prove oneself are sort of sometimes categorized as like this sort of the three areas that characterize codependent relationships, if that makes sense. So yeah,
that
just starting to
that's
become aware.
yeah. Could you repeat that? Because I really think that we can relate to that. The need.
Yes, I heard
Go
someone
ahead.
else say it. I didn't make that up, but it's, yeah, if that was a good way to categorize it, is the need to be needed,
Yes.
the want to be wanted,
Hmm.
and the need to prove oneself.
Hmm. And not
So,
trusting that if you show up as who you are,
yeah,
your true self, that's not going to happen for you. Like you don't have the trust in your own self,
right,
that you
right.
have to do something to earn it, to get it. So your
Mhm.
self-worth is tied in with all of that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's when our self-worth, when that, need for love and approval is coming from external, outside of us, from other people, it just sets us up for a lot of trouble, and then the love, it becomes very conditional, and we don't mean it to be that way, but that's
Right.
really the goal, right? Is to come into good alignment with ourselves and tap back into the truth, the wholeness of who we are, because you already do love yourself. It's just, that's our natural state. It's like little children, we just get caught up in identifying with these patterns. So that's the first step, is just start to become aware. Where do I feel like maybe I'm a little out of balance with that? And am I looking to that other person for something that I really need to figure out how to get from within myself? That was my big learning. Right.
So I have a question. Do you feel like, and this may be too broad for this conversation, or maybe just a shorter answer, like when we find a partner, well, actually, even before I say this, when we're talking about these kinds of relationships, they don't have to be just with partners. They can be with friends and family members and everyone in your life, whoever you're connected to. You could develop these patterns or have this kind of relationship.
Absolutely. And they
Right.
usually do. It's like when we've got these patterns running, they run across all our relationships. They affect all
Oh,
our
yeah.
relationships. So it doesn't have to be just with an intimate partner.
I
But
think
usually
that,
that's where it shows up the strongest, or like family members.
right, right, right. But I think what you just said is so important, that if you have this pattern, it runs through all your relationships. So you could
Mhm.
probably see it in everything that you're doing, every relationship that you have.
Mhm.
Yeah. So then my question that I started before is, do you think we attract these people into our lives because we have this need? And then that's more then we have to heal ourselves first.
Yes, absolutely. I feel like, we attract, it's all energy, so it's like we attract from how we're being, from where we're at. And if I've got this codependent pattern running, it's kind of an energetic thing. I'm going to attract people that, like, if I'm overgiving, I'm going to attract people that want to take. So it's kind of a energy thing. But yeah, we do attract from where we're at. And I know, when I married a man who really wasn't that emotionally available. I didn't realize it at
Mhm.
the time, but because I wasn't emotionally available to myself. So it just felt okay, felt like even, it
Mhm.
felt safe, if that makes sense. So yeah, we
Mhm.
absolutely do attract from wherever we're at, from our state of being.
Yeah. I'm relating. I was thinking as you were saying that my first husband, I married my mother, who was emotionally unavailable. And then I
Mhm.
just recreated that pattern. Um,
Mhm.
and so yeah. Um,
As a therapist, that's what happens, right? We marry, it's usually one of our parents. It's that same
mhm,
pattern. We're used to it. We're comfortable with it. So, that's our pattern. And so we attract people that were like, usually one of our parents. And so we have opportunity to
mhm.
clean that up. It gives us an opportunity. Yeah.
Right. I love, yeah, and saying that it's an opportunity. I think it is really something to emphasize. And not that we're calling women out or pointing fingers or saying there's something wrong. I mean, it's just a natural thing that happens given the circumstances that you've lived through, and part of how you adapted in a certain way. And so the beauty of having this awareness is you get to change it. And
Mhm.
so you had started talking about some tips. You were talking about
Mhm.
self-care. I don't know if
Mhm.
you want to say more about that, or just the
Yes.
tips in general. Yeah.
So just awareness. And yeah, definitely. I love what you're saying. Like, just remember, it really is not your fault. It's childhood patterns that just got created from unmet needs of a child. We all need love. We all need approval. But the beauty is, now as adults, we have the power and the consciousness to start to notice where things are not feeling good, where things are out of alignment. So that maybe is just tip number 2, just notice when you're getting triggered, when you're getting upset about a situation, and to just start to, like we call it, triggers as treasures. So that's,
Oh,
relationships really are like a mirror. It's really just like like a mirror, and it's this growth opportunity. So anytime I'm getting triggered, there's something happening, whatever the situation is, it's like, okay, let me stop. Let me take a time out here and take a breath and just, okay, what, what is it in me? What is it that's really bothering me? I have a whole process that I use with my clients. I call the inner freedom process, where we actually go in and start to release whatever it is getting triggered and unwind those old patterns. But it's just, your emotions are valuable information. I know when it doesn't feel good, we don't really, like, that's our natural tendency, is to just distract or avoid or suppress, because we don't want to feel stuff that doesn't feel good. That's normal. That's your brain's protective mechanism, right? But the problem is then what we resist persists. And so, so anytime you're upset, and this is what I've learned how to do with myself, and then I love really helping people with, is how do we become sovereign over our own emotional well-being? How do we show up for ourselves? And so this is probably the most important thing you can do, is just, notice how you feel. Like when you're upset, when something's bothering you, you just stop and just notice how you feel, instead of like eating or scrolling or, whatever. We all have our ways to distract, right? But if we can just stop for a moment and breathe and just, I'll give you the beginning of the inner freedom process, is just, first of all, just name it. If we can just name it, what do I feel? Okay, you just I'm upset right now because so and so said this and it really hurt my feelings. This as an example, so just name it. If you can just name it, that automatically, they actually did studies on that, by just naming how you feel. I feel this way because of this just happened. Then it automatically like calms your nervous system. It's like your inner being knows that you're listening and you're paying attention. It's like a little child that's upset. That's part of you that's upset, that needs your love and attention when you're upset about something. So this is how we show up for ourselves. Just first of all, so name it, number one.
Name it and tame it, right?
Name it. Yeah. Well, you know what? It's even, I would say, name it and love it. Like, so,
Yeah.
right. So name it, and then just, where do I feel? What do I feel? Where do I feel in my body? And just like from sort of a witnessing place, like a curious witnessing place, just, where do I feel that emotion in my body? Maybe it's in my throat, or maybe my heart is hurting, or, wherever you feel it. And you can just even put your hands like right on your body where you feel it, and then just breathe as if you were sitting with an upset child. You're the loving parent. It's not going to help the child if you get on the floor and start screaming and crying with it, right? You're going to be the loving, higher consciousness, the loving, the more whole part of yourself that can just witness that part that's upset and just sit with it, and no agenda to fix it, change it, make it go away. It's just part of you that's upset. So that's the first part of this whole inner freedom process. Is just, and you'd be amazed like what happens when you just sit with that energy. It's as if you could just put your arms around it and hold it with a loving embrace, and maybe just even breathe some light into it, breathe some love into it, and just see what happens. And then like the next part that usually requires coaching is then we can start getting into what we call a medicinal dialogue with that part that's upset. And it's usually a very younger part, that's the inner child work. But there's some good ways to just start.
Well, and I think part of what you're saying is that not to have judgment with the feelings. They're not good, bad, whatever. They just are. They're just there, and for our information. So if you are upset, then okay, let's dig a little deeper.
Yeah,
Find
that's
out
such a
what's
good point.
underneath.
So often, like, I know even for myself, I catch myself doing that too. It's like, it's like, all right, we're upset. And then we judge ourselves for feeling that way, or we get upset that we're feeling upset. It's like, I don't want to feel that way. Why am I still feeling that way? Right. And then we're in resistance, when we're in resistance to it, that keeps us stuck in it. And so we really do need to just, like, it's okay. However you feel right now, it's okay. You feel how you feel. All feelings are welcome. That's how we sit. We learn how to sit in radical self-acceptance. All feelings welcome. Just notice. It's okay.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And we so often want to push against them, push them away. Yeah. So triggers are treasures. Yes.
as much as they might not feel like it in the moment, if we can have the tools and the support we need to be able to, do the deeper work, so that it is really an opportunity for us to love ourselves more. And to unwind whatever the buttons that are getting pushed are just parts of us that are looking for healing. It's an opportunity for healing, honestly. If we can have the tools and the support we need to process it in that way.
Beautiful. I know it's hard in the moment to press pause and do that. So I just want to say, even if you can't do it in the moment, you can go back and do it. Yeah, and you get better at it with time.
Yeah, and if you're
With practice, time and practice.
Yeah, we can't always just stop in the middle. But you know what? You can't take a time out from a conversation. Like if you're in a conversation with someone and it's not going in a good direction, you could pause that. You could just say, you know what? I feel like I'm getting upset, and I'm going to just excuse myself from this conversation because I feel like it's not going in a good direction, and we can come back around to it. And I'm happy to talk to you about it more when I'm more calm, so you could just gracefully excuse yourself. You don't have to, those conversations you get going and people it's getting heated, and it's just like, it's getting just more and more exacerbated, and it's not going to end well. So as soon as you notice that, you can just put a pause on it and excuse yourself. You don't have to continue in a conversation in a moment like that. But yeah, you might be in a situation
that feels so powerful and empowering. Yeah.
Or if the other person is heated and talking to you in a way that is disrespectful, or like yelling or whatever, like you don't have to accept unacceptable behavior. I had to learn that too, is that so maybe someone else is coming at you heavy and hot and strong, and you can be like, wow, you know what, it looks like you're really upset right now. And but I don't want to, how would you say, it looks like you're really upset right now, and I don't like how you're speaking to me right now, and I'll be happy to talk to you about it when you're more calm, but for now I'm going to excuse myself, and we can come back around, and I'm happy to talk to you about it when you can talk to me in a calm way. Something maybe like that.
Very powerful. Yeah, I would imagine that would take a good bit of practice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's acknowledge that for everyone.
And courage. Yeah, especially if we have the people pleasing patterns running, we're afraid of conflict. I really had to practice that a lot to get to that point where I would have the courage to say that. But it helps, I think, sometimes to just have a little framework of words that you can use.
I was just thinking that is to have sort of practice the scenarios that could possibly come up ahead of time, so you're kind of set, and then you have ways to come back. Before we end for today, a couple of things. I do want, we really kind of went into the codependent kind of idea. I do want to say what a healthy caretaking looks like. And maybe you can say just a sentence or two about that.
Yes, thank you for asking that. I know a lot of us are in situations where we are in a caretaker role with other people, and it's really hard and it's really stressful. So it makes it even more vital for us to build some self-care practices into ourselves, for ourselves. Right? Because like I said, we can't give from an empty cup. And if we let ourselves get depleted and sick, then we can't be there for anyone else. So it's really vital that we have to fill up our own cup first. We say, give from the saucer, not from the cup. You got to keep your cup full, right? Because then you have more energy.
Good visual.
Yeah. Yes. And so what does self-care look like? I mean, we all need that anyways. Like we need some way to every day calm down our minds, get centered. I have just a 5-minute breathing practice that I do every morning. I do a lot of things, but what does self-care look like for you? It doesn't have to, it could just be a couple minutes. It could just be some breathing, like physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Maybe I need to make sure I get to bed earlier. Maybe I need to make sure I get outside and do a little walking. I do that every day too. I love my nature time is my time for renewing my spirit. prayer, whatever works for you, have some healthy eating, just some time just so that we stay in balance. And your emotions again are just information. There's such valuable information, especially when you're experiencing a negative emotion. So this is a really important thing to notice, is like when I start to feel resentful, that's my cue to know that I am giving more than is comfortable for me, right? That's sort of where that line is when I start to feel resentful about it, then I'm not, I'm out of balance, and I'm not gonna, it's not, if I comment caretake you and I have this resentful energy, like that's not really good. And for
Or
anybody.
either of, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah,
that's a
yeah,
good guideline. Just notice when you're starting to feel resentful, that's your cue to know,
right.
like
And
something's getting, yeah.
the tendency would be to blame instead of taking responsibility yourself to change
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I know maybe you're in a situation where you feel like there aren't options. Like I'm having to care for this person more than I want to, and I am feeling resentful. So then I would just invite you to maybe open your mind a little bit to possibilities. Like, am I the only person on the planet that can do this for this person? Maybe there's a way for us to bring in some other resources or other people to help, so that I'm not, not feeling resentful. Or maybe I just need to build in, if there's a way I can build in more self-care. So when I go in there, I'm not coming from it, that place of already feeling depleted in my life. So sort of self-care, and also just like staying open to possibilities.
a
But
great question to ask yourself. Am I the only person that can provide this for
Mhm.
someone? Yeah. Yeah, because I think we get caught up in doing what we do. We don't stop and pause
Mhm.
and rethink it and say, is there another way that's
Yeah,
healthier for me? Right.
yeah. And then it's also just looking at those patterns, like, am I enabling? Like, am I overstepping? Like, is what really is my responsibility and what is not? And so, just checking, keeping those patterns in check too. Am I overgiving? And is it really serving that person?
Right. This has been such a rich conversation, and I know we touched deeply on a lot of things, but we could go so deeply with it. And you have a free offering coming up, and I want to give you a chance to say a little bit about that.
Thank you, Dyanne. Yes. For those of you who are unhappy in your intimate relationships and you are struggling with that question of whether to stay or go, I'm doing a free masterclass, the 3 keys to get the clarity you need and the love you want. And so we're going to talk about what's the number one mistake that women make when they're trying to get their needs met in a relationship, help you get really crystal clear on what do you really need to be happy. And I'm going to give you also a step-by-step decision-making process, so you can confidently make the decisions that are going to be right for you, that honor who you are. And so it's going to be a really empowering, eye-opening masterclass. It's coming up Thursday, June 8th, next
So
week.
1 week from today.
A week from today, 7
Right.
p.m. Eastern. And I know you're going to pop a link in if people want
Yeah.
to save their seat for that. It's all confidential on Zoom, and we'll have some private time too afterwards for questions and answers. So yeah, if you just want to, start to move in the direction of getting the clarity you need and starting to get some tools on how to, we're going to go a little bit more in depth too about these patterns, these codependent patterns,
Oh,
how
right.
that's
Okay.
getting in the way of our clarity. That's one of the blocks to clarity, is just, having these patterns, these unconscious patterns that are running. So we're going to take a nice deep dive into a lot of stuff that we talked about today. So definitely go ahead and click that link if you want to join us. I'd
Right.
love to.
So I will make sure to get that in the comment section below this. And yeah, this has been wonderful. So thank you so much for being here. Let me just check to see real quick if we have any questions that came up.
Okay.
While we were talking, I'm sorry, I'm looking away.
It's okay. I know, such good conversation. I hope that was helpful for people. Definitely pop in any questions, comments. We'll be going back to look for those. And
I'm not seeing any at the moment. Okay, so we'll call it for today. And yeah, so this has been Ignite Your Inner Spark. And join me next time for inspiring conversations, practical tips to deepen your awareness for a more intuitive, fulfilling, soul-aligned life. And remember, as a soul fire woman, there's a flame within you waiting to be ignited. So thank you all for being here.
thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay.